For those who are new to me, I'm Laura Chrisman. I'm your personal brand coach and side hustle mentor, digital strategist in the corporate world, online solopreneur, and French expatriate. I wear all the hats and I help purpose driven. I want to talk about, reflect back actually about my journey and share some mistakes or things I thought were true but hasn't haven't been in my career path, and it took me quite some time to figure it out. And I was thinking, hey, I can share it here so you guys don't have to spend that many time and over the years. And my invitation for this live is really to stretch your thinking, is going to require to think outside the box, because overall, if there is one learning I got when I had to shape my own career path, really it came down to shaping my own rules. And from that, it means understanding what's the box people are thinking career path and career progressions, career growth, success, and create my own rules, my own box, my own expensive box. Because hey, why putting some yourself in a frame or your future in a frame when you can create your own definition of success? So what I want to talk about today is pretty much, I would say, key shifts I've made in my thinking, and not only thinking but also how it translated into very tangible actions or things I've done that really made me shift from in a very passive way of thinking growing my career and kind of follow the flow of what everybody is supposed to do, to rethink it in a way that works for me and give me much more you know um, agency agency to actually drive and take decisions that I can see works for me long term, and just at the end of the day make me happy to go to work and reconcile passions with life work. Really, that's all about it. So I wanted to share three mistakes I've made as I've been building a portfolio career, pretty much because it was before I understood I was building a portfolio career. Because before that, I was on the path of the expectations of building a linear career path because that's the only thing I knew. And in terms of three mistakes, I wanted to put some highlight and focus on three aspects of what it comes down to when you build a portfolio career, which is on the what, on the when, and on the how. So before I, come down to explain and share, I wanted to give a bit of context of where I'm coming from, because I'm mindful, with different industries or just, environment when it comes down to work. Everybody is different and have their own, experience. So what I wanted to share in terms of circumstance, when you zoom back from the past 10 years since I've been evolving in my career, I like to think the very first time I was pretty much putting my brain into how do I figure out a career, and that come down very very early, when you're perhaps in high school or at uni, when you have to select what path, because that can really determine later on what opportunities you may have or not have. So I remember the first time when I entered the job market, I did some internship, did the starting from the ground, right, to build upon where I'm at today. And when I entered the marketplace, really I heard things around I remember the one about you will be lucky, this one, you will be lucky to find a permanent role. Just that, it seems it was something very fancy to get from the get-go, and I was promised to do tons of internships, low pay, and be happy to have a job regardless the pay, and um, if there is any growth, evolution perspective for me, probably not, but just be somewhere, find something was already a big deal. Knowing that when I entered the job market, that was just after 2028, the financial crisis, and pretty much the perspectives were not so promising. The economy in general wasn't very strong, and for new grads, new like very junior employees to come in and just apply for roles, that was quite a tough market. So things like that I've heard so much, such as, oh, that's a sacrificed generation entering the job market. That's something I've heard. So you can imagine when you want to learn more, get your first professional experiences entering the job market, and you're hearing that, it's quite defeating, really, to hear. And something as well I've heard is, it's a tough market out there, expect competition. In other words, that I had to fight, right, to get a piece of the pie, enter the job market. I was pretty much integrated the thing that is going to be difficult, is going to be hard. I'm going to be compared very, specifically on my resume or just diploma I have. So every advantages or things I can put a resume could be game changer. So I wanted to share those because as I entered the job market early on, and I didn't know better really, it kind of put a lot of pressure, and really it was ingrained in my mind that it was going to be hard. Like finding a role, really hard, but also the expectations was the expectation were if I were to find something, it was good already enough to have an internship or just one position. Then how fulfilling, how much of an opportunity, and how happy I will be in it would be like second priority. So that created that scarcity when it comes down to finding a role, that I think, reflecting back, it really added to how I approach entering the job market, but also how I wanted to challenge that at some point, because it's not really the energy you want to comes in when like you want to have an impact in the things you do. You want to find fulfillment in all areas of your life, and the life work is a big part of it because you can see how everything can build upon each other. Actually, that's what I'm seeing it today. So it was quite interesting, reflecting back where it was coming from, how different that vision was. So here a bit of a background, also why I also experienced either those aspects of like that pressure entering the job market, also because of the industries I've been in, such as the tech industry, the media, digital advertising industries, and things I've heard all the time, either on the job specs or professionals, or during the interviews also, that it's a fast-paced industries. Those are fast-paced industries. It's very innovative and global, meaning you have teams or offices around the globe, so it's very much requiring collaboration internationally. So those were quite great, and for me I found it very, very enticing to apply for. But what it meant as well is it was a lot of changes, like a lot of changes in the organizations, in the market. So it's never really staying still, which means I always have to adapt, pivot as well, or unlearn and relearn what I thought I knew. In other words, in any roles I've been in, at some point I have to relearn my own roles because the technology were changing so fast, or because the structure of the organization was adapting. So I have to embrace as a default, as I was progressing in my career, that I have to adapt. I have to pivot, and I have to have this beginner mindset all the time. So if you think that situation, because of the industries and the one I've been in and all that change that's been going on there, plus the situation in the job market that wasn't really, I would say, plenty of opportunities at that time, it kind of challenges about how, what does that mean for me, and how you approach the job market and how you think your career, right? Because you can think, oh, I have changes or difficult circumstances happening to me and how I have to fight against them. But at the end of the day, that's not what I wanted to do long term. And in terms of impact, well, it happens that I did I've been looking for that purpose in roles I've been doing, because I've been changing roles quite a lot. On my resume, it can look like as job hopping, and I've been in interviews when it's been looked at bad, looked as it's something that needs to be called out. And with all those experiences as I've been navigating my career, if you zoom back and see how I've been changing roles and industries over the years, well, I pretty much built a non-linear path. And reflecting back on my journey, I can see that now there have been 3 mistakes or myths that I've held on to, mostly because they are general career advice. And now I'm looking at them very differently, and I'm really very much on that non-linear path. So let's go into it and see those 3 mistakes of myth I've made as I've been building a portfolio career. So the first one, I said on the what when it comes down to career, and in that case portfolio careers. This one is quite huge. It sounds obvious, but really I found it's not that obvious, which is your career isn't your job title. I'm going to let that sink in and repeat it again. Your career isn't your job title. And I appreciate that when you present yourself, or when you just describe what you do, the first thing you might share and you might say to that person who is asking is your job title, with the expectations that that job title is going to do the job of explaining what you do in which industries, but also it gives a bit of that status. It kind of puts you in a space for somebody else to figure it out. It's like, okay, that's where this person is about. That's how I see and I might perceive what success is for that person, the access of whatever industries. So it kind of give people an idea, or supposedly an idea of what you do. The thing is, reflecting back on my job titles, the one I hold it in the past, is very few are very telling of what I'm doing. Another way to say, if I were to say, oh, I'm an AdOps manager, or I'm a personal brand coach, or I'm working at the office of the CTO, how much does that tell you? What am I doing? I mean, for people working in tech, digital media, probably might ring a couple of bells, but still, even with those industries, I can tell you I have to explain what it is. So if I were just to let you imagine at family dinners, when I would, drop the job title, and I will have that smile or that nod, I'm like 100% sure no one gets an idea of what I'm doing. It's like, oh, cool, great, whatever that's supposed to be. So if I were to put all my identity as, my life work, or what I want to achieve and the impact I want to do in the world, all into that one job title, can you imagine the gap? Can you imagine the gap between what I know is my role and what people are trying to perceive based on the few information and their imagination of what they could be, because really the title itself doesn't say much about what I'm doing every day. I mean, most of the time people would imagine that, oh, she's working in digital and tech, so she might be in front of her computer every day. That's pretty much where it stops. The what am I doing for what, I can tell you that's very, very vague and very few people know. And that is just for one job title. Imagine now that you hold multiple hats, which is exactly what happened when you have a portfolio career. You have a different activities that creates a portfolio, which altogether is your career. So again, your career isn't a job title because probably you're more than one, and you the title itself doesn't describe really what you do, and especially why you're in that industry, why you're having this role, and what problem you're solving every day. Because another thing that I found was so telling reflecting back is, when you're young, high school, I remember is like, hey, if you need to choose something at uni, really think about what role you want to have. Like really, you need this clarity, although you're like super young, to know what career into a job title you want to aim, and then build a path towards it, which makes sense on paper, but in my experience, the industries I've been working in, it absolutely don't. Why? Because all the roles that I've been having over the years, I can tell you that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I have no idea that title just existed. Those roles existed. Why? Because some have been created over the years, because again, innovative industries, and what was the role 10 years from now, what it is today, is quite different. So something I found is a bit of a almost counterintuitive. It's like how you can imagine which role is right for you and create a 10-year plan for your career when I would never have known I would ended up there. And I remember, when I have, student or clients asking me, how have you made up to that space in your career? I always like to say, well, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I would have no idea because I didn't know those roles existed. And if you understand now how difficult it is to capture in one job title all your career, imagine if you have multiple streams of income. So again, I like to say your job title doesn't define your career, doesn't define and capture well, I would say, the value you're bringing to an organization, your skills, your leadership styles, and all your experiences. So that's the first myth I found is like doesn't work for me. And putting it aside, what it means is I don't have to put so much pressure in finding the fanciest job title, the one that would make me feel proud, good about it, because again, there is so much one job title can do. And if I want to define my career beyond a job title, then I need to find other ways so people can have a better perception of what I do. All right, we're going to go for the second myth, and this one I wanted to focus on the when in terms of timing, and something I've realized and now I'm sharing to my clients or people I mentored is you need to cultivate your network yesterday. And I like to use that because actually it's a bit of a habits I found has I've been working in digital, a lot of media campaigns, and usually when you need something, well, you need it yesterday. So that's something we overuse in this industry. I'm sure in others as well. And why I say yesterday, because yes, in terms of timing, there is quite some importance here, because while you might start a job search today, you want to have fostered your network already. And that's something I've learned the hard way in my early years entering the job market, is how to actually tap on the network. And it's really hard to search a role, a job, when you don't have a network and you try to start building a network. Another way to say it's much easier to build a network when you're not searching, and then connecting with your network when you are looking for opportunities, than the other way around. It's really, really hard to build a network and say, oh, I'm searching a job, so I'm going to start building a network, because you think building a network as a very transactional way, like let me connect with people so they can find me opportunities. And let's be fair, this is very not necessarily open for opportunities dynamic, because people sense that. And in terms of how you connect, it's always harder to say, hey, I want to connect with you, help me now, right? That creates a bit of that desperate energy that you don't want to. And although it's digital mostly in terms of connections, LinkedIn for example, well, we're humans, and I found that it's much easier to connect in a very genuine way, as you will meet someone in the elevator, in front of the coffee machine. And that takes time, because cultivating a network is an art, and that's something I learned. And I'm an introvert, so I'm going to put it out there. Networking, in the early days, it was, I couldn't stand it. Just the idea of it, I could see how beneficial it was, but it's like, it's not my forte. It's not who I am. I'm just going to be in odd situations and just dream to run away from the space, or run away from, the conference. It's like, if I can avoid it, I would avoid the network thing altogether. So all of what I'm sharing here, bear in mind, it's coming from an introvert. So it's possible. I think it comes down to how you think networking. And again, if it's very transactional about, hey, let me add numbers of my followers and how many people are connecting with me, so I have that massive audience, and then I can tap on a massive list of contact. Well, that's one way. I don't believe in this way. What I think, and I found much more sustainable, especially for introverts, is understanding networking as the art of being curious and asking great questions, which is, by the way, what works as well beyond networking, is relationship connection with somebody else one-on-one. A good question just will enable the conversation to flow. That's it. Well, with this in mind, in terms of timing, again, I understood way too late, or when I really needed to tap on a network, that it's a long game. It's an investment over time. So it's not, I search for a job, so I'm going to network, then I found something, then I stop. It's, something you build over time. And again, if you don't think it as something purely transactional, but more like, I want to build genuine connections with professionals that I feel inspired by, I'm genuinely curious of what they do and what I can learn from them, then that's what is paying off down the line. To give you an idea, well, I'm still connected with connection I've made 10 years ago. And yes, you might not chat every week, right? But every then and then, taking some news, and I realized wow, it's been quite a while we've been connected, but the conversation is still ongoing. And if you zoom back and you think how what's the quality of the connection, because it's been nurtured, it's been fostered for so many years. I'm now quite of a in that close circle of relationship, that's someone that would ask for connection just like yesterday, because quick, I need to ask for a favor. And you know all this about connecting, asking genuine questions and showing curiosity really made so much more sense to me when I realized, like, this is the forum, this is the platform for me to show up as a servant leader. For those who knows what servant leadership is, well, if I were to summarize really quickly, is provide value first. Think as a leader how you can serve people who are following you or who you're connecting with, and lead from that. And networking, when you think it from that place, is very different than, oh, I need to increase my follow base. So that is all about the when again. So if you think about networking and you're like, I don't know where to start, it's really draining, well, ping me a comment, like put down below what has been your experience like. And yeah, if you're an introvert, tell me how it's been like for you, because again, I feel you on this. It's not impossible. And if you do that shift from, oh, I need to perform as I'm networking and connect, it's going to be very draining. But on the contrary, if you show up as a leader, well, it can almost be fun because it puts down the pressure of, again, pure transaction, but actually get to know people. That gives you inspirations, motivation, and that's much more fun. I can tell you that. What I can share as well, I was thinking before going to the next point, is areas. I said I wanted to make it very tangible. And when I say networking, it doesn't have to be peers, in your industry. I think you can really just think your networking as what are the communities I want to reach out. And for me, it's been different forums, different type of ways of connecting with people. And for example, at the very, very early stages, it's been connecting with professionals, so people already in an industry I was curious about. And really, I went as, hey, I would like to know more about the role and what it's like, because I'm new in the market. So having that inside view of what's a role about, well, that was a great way to connect, because I was there to learn, and people do love to share what they know, what they've been experiencing, and it was no string attached, right? It wasn't, hey, and now find me a job. But when I've done this, that creates that perception of, oh, that young individual is curious, she's interested. And that's a great first impression you can leave on professionals who know. If they were to hire, then I can think of you as, I know that curious person that was interested and asked good questions, and the conversation was interesting, could be on top of mind, right? Other ways I've been networking, now the other way around, later on in my career as well, is mentoring. I mentor women in tech, but also I've looked for mentors myself, so I can still learn from connections and somebody else's experience, and really have that conversation. So really I can stretch my thinking as a leader and get that perspective and support. And at the end of the day, networking can be, if you really start from scratch, be a connector. Be a connector as showing up as a role model, so you can connect people with each other and pretty much be intentional. That's what it comes down to, as either it's reaching out, catching up, and again, be curious. Where are people at? And that again is very basic conversations. It doesn't have to be, hey, I have a big favor to ask, or I'm going to connect you only when I have an agenda in the conversation. That can just be support. I mean, if we think of the past years, it's been tough, right, for everyone. And in the job place, well, the environment, the pace, the ways of working have been changing. And we had to ask with each other, like, hey, how are you doing? And not just the, hey, how are you? The real intention of knowing, how are you doing? And just that, I can tell you, that goes a long way. Because pretty much you say, hey, I'm a human, you're a human, I'm interested to know more about you as a human. I want to put the intention to see that person and to hear that person. That goes a long way. So I wanted to share, right? So you have a bit some ideas for those, like, where do I start, and how, what's the strategies. Absolutely, you can think about multiple strategies, but if you were to start from somewhere, think about how you can connect and be a connector by connecting different people to each other, because that's what being human is about. All right, so we did two on the what, the when. I wanted to wrap up the last one on the how. What is the third myth I've experienced, or here it would be more of a mistake I've experienced as I've been building a portfolio career. And this one is on the how. When I say on the how, is on the practices. And this one is especially on the interview positioning. And I'd like to say it's a model I've created, and this one has been serving me for like so many years, and is owning the 3-pillar interview positioning. So what the hell is that? Well, I'm going to tell you just now. Pretty much is how to answer the question, tell me about you, or tell me about yourself, which 99% of the time is how an interview is going to start. And that here I'm thinking interview in a corporate world, but it does work as well when you're freelancing and that interview is with a client, for example. So the 3-pillar interview positioning is having in mind, if you were to have from 2 to perhaps max 5 minutes. 5 minutes is quite long, so I would say 3-4 max, to actually articulate more about yourself. So it's not necessarily just an elevator pitch like one statement, but is where you can articulate a bit more, but it's in the same vein of it. Why I'm calling it the 3-pillar interview positioning, it's because it's going away from the traditional way of introducing yourself, which most of the time is, well, I'm Laura Chrisman, I've been working in different positions, and then you go, in a chronological order, and it's like, I've done this, and in this role I've done that, blah, 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 and then go along. Which for me couldn't work, because as I said at the very beginning, I had multiple roles. So if I were to explain every single one of them, well, it's not 5 minutes I would probably need the entire hour for the interview. So as a default, that chronological way of introducing yourself and tell more to the interviewer what your experience is about never worked for me. And the more I had experiences over the year, the least it was working for me. So I had to restructure the entire thing. And to be fair, I've been myself on the interviewer side, and I found it sometimes very flat way to introduce yourself, because I like to say it's a bit of the catalog way of introducing yourself. It's like, I've done this, and then that, and then this, and then that, right? You turn the page of the catalog, it's like, yes, but there isn't any story. And that is huge in interviewing, storytelling, and just messaging, branding in general. You want to have a story. So the three pillar interview positioning is enabling me to do exactly that. That's storytelling. So three pillars. The first one is the stand. The second one is the evidences and the strategy. And the third one is the promise. So the first one, the first pillar, the stand, is pretty much in one statement capturing the big picture of what you see are your key strengths that you can bring on the table for this role or for this opportunity. It's really introducing your pitch. It could be your elevator pitch. That could be one of the statements. What I like to use, it's a bit of a recap from the type of industries I've been working in, plus, a bit of the environment. Is it international, small businesses, or large companies, right? Pretty much elements from your background, if you were to zoom out and see, almost like type words that you see would be relevant for the opportunities you're applying for. Because you want pretty much to show, hey, based on all the experiences I have, there is relevancy for me applying. And you can use exactly those words. From my experience, for example, my international experience in the digital industries, working in those type of companies, ABC, I can see you can use, I believe it would benefit me in the success in this role. And the main skills I can see would benefit in this role is skill 1, 2, skill 2, 3, skill 3, which is pretty much introducing the body of the second pillar, the evidences and the strategies. So again, the stand, pretty much here positioning yourself as, hey, I've been reading carefully the job specs or very much understanding the brief from a potential client. And I can see that from my overall experience in either this, that, and that, I'm noticing, or I can highlight 3 main skills that I believe would benefit in the success in this role, opportunities, right? All right, so the second pillar, the evidences and the strategies. Here, pretty much you get to the meat, right, of why you're making that stand. And for each skills you highlighted, you want to provide an example, a key evidence of what you've been doing in past roles, in past experiences, and how that could apply for the role you're applying in. And here it really shows, it really shows that you spend careful time to read the job specs. You want to use the keywords that you've seen in the job specs. So again, you want to highlight in those 3 skills. I'm saying 3, you can say 4, 5. Because of the time, my advice, I recommend 3. So it's smooth and it's actually good for the brain. The brain do love 3 as a number, again for the storytelling. And think about what qualities you need to demonstrate in this role. And for example, let's say it's a tech strategic role. Well, you might need a lot of cross-functional collaboration. And thinking of that, in which situation and past experiences you've been demonstrating with specific win. Why you're doing this? Well, this is a way to pretty much present in such an obvious way to whoever is the interviewer that you're the right match. Pretty much, I like to say, is the show me you know me, and you don't have, you're not putting on the interviewer to try to connect the dots. You're doing them for them. It's like, hey, I've read the specs. I understand that for this role, what is could be really important to succeed is this, and how I've been demonstrating that when it's about cross-functional collaboration in my past role is in whatever company. When I've done this, I really focus on that. So here you're pretty much answering the question why you're a good match, why you're a good client for this opportunity. All right, so the stand, the evidence, the strategy. The second pillar, you want to stay perhaps probably the longest here, because the third one is the last one is the promise, is the way to wrap this up. It's pretty much a pitch what I'm describing. The promise is wrapping up your intro as you've been highlighting the three skills you see will benefit for the role, and say how you understand from those three pillars are going to be important in serving the big picture of the company, the big vision and impact the organization aspires to have. This, my friend, is a game changer, because it shows that, hey, I've been doing the homework of really putting some time to read through the job specs, and you get in the meat of what your expertise, what's your talents, and what you will do in your day to day, but how you see that connecting with the big picture, and how you see, how you show you understood what's the big picture of why this role exists. That, my friends, brings a lot of reassurance for a hiring manager, because okay, that person has the experience, but also they connect with the big vision. And my tip for this one is, if you are beyond the first round and you've been talking with other interviewers and you have different rounds, you can quote what you heard from the previous interview and use that in the promise. For example, based on my last conversation with the first interviewer, use names, right? That's very powerful. I understood that the vision of the organization is this. So those are the key priorities for the next following years. And with my experience, I can see really serving that, right? It shows active listening. So I'm sharing here quite in details what that 3-pillar interview framework is, because what it means for you is you choose not to play safe with the chronological introduction of yourself, but instead you position yourself as a strategic consultant. And really, as a hiring manager, I can tell you, you are dying to have that answer quickly is, are you the right fit? Are you, and not just fit, as skills, but also as a person, as an individual, do you see that as an opportunity? Are you excited by the opportunity? And that's a great way to show how you understand where they are at. And shifting from the chronological order, what it does is really turning the conversation so it's not all about you, but it's also about them. And that, in sales, in any converting conversation you want to nail, make it about them, not about you. Yes, you're introducing yourself. You're answering the tell me about you question. But here, see how that incorporates all the time at every stages, how it's also about them. Because to be fair, you can have introductions with I've done this role the chronological way. The interviewer can zone out for 20 minutes if it's a long one, which is not how you want to start any interview or any nailing conversation. That framework does work very, very well when you pivot or have a non-linear path, because here it's not about steps, it's about how you encapsulate and understood all the experiences and skills and talents you have to meet a brief, to meet the job specs. And it brings also your own creativity, because you're drafting, you're shaping that pitch, right? And again, it's not playing safe. You might have interviewers that don't like it, but those who do, well, I tell you this, they're going to like your approach, And it's also a great way to understand, like, oh, that person, I like how she rolls, I like how she drives things, I understand her story, she's doing something different. So it's a great way as well for you to see if it's a great match. All right, I'm going to pause here for a second, and if you have any insights or like, oh wow, I never thought about introducing myself that way, well, tell me in the comments. I would love to know if you have any insights, because here I'm sharing a bit of a preview of, again, things I've learned and things I'm teaching to my clients in my coaching programs, because here all the what, the when, and the how I shared are pretty much an invitation to think differently, to shift, but also to take responsibility and ownership in building your own path. Because instead of trying to fit into what things are supposed to be, one job title, chronological order, or network when you look for a job, but think in a different way so you can be in the driver's seat. And not only in the driver's seat to mimic every other career path, but to build your own. And all of those are putting you in the front row of being a leader of your own career, on your own expansion, growth, on the impact you want to deliver in the world, and as well as a role model. Because what I can tell you is that way of driving your career is going to inspire others. Why? Because you're going to create that curiosity of people thinking, oh, that's different. Oh, I never heard someone introducing themselves that way. Oh, that person is actually interested in how am I doing? Not just pitching me, with a cold DM, right? We also all seen those, and they don't feel great, right? So with that in mind, I wanted to invite anyone who has been resonating with the content and feel like, oh, that's interesting, I want to know more. Well, if you have any haha, please share it in the comment, or tell me in the chats as well where you're at and what has been your experience. And for those who are curious to bring this even further, well, you're in the right place, because I've pretty much built an entire masterclass where I explain what are the key areas of why, when building a portfolio career hasn't been working for you, but things you can do instead. And again, this, my friends, is free. It's a masterclass I wanted to share to the world because, hey, I think this information needs to be more out there. Again, I spent years to figure that out, and I can tell you it wasn't that easy to access. So for those who are interested, I have that free masterclass, which is pretty much how to expand your career when you want to monetize all your talents and expanding your impact while working your 9 to 5, as you might want to diversify your income streams. And if you want that masterclass, well, go on my Instagram at aspirational, and it's in the link, and you can grab it. And again, if you have any insights from it, tell me. For those who want to have more insights like this coming up, well, every week I will share my thoughts and life like this. So if you want more content like this, follow this account and give me a like so I know what has been resonating or not. And from that, I leave you until next week.